second graders, it's Mrs. Jansen, and I'm really excited to start a new project with you this week. I hope that you had fun spending 2 weeks doing our Andy Warhol inspired flowers, but I hope you're ready for a little bit of change. We're not going to use any paint or cutting paper. We are going to be working on a project that is inspired by this Panorama A Foldout Book. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to see this book before, but we are going to just look at it for a little bit to get our inspiration. The supplies that you are going to need before we start our lesson. You are going to need a pencil, an eraser, and both a fine and an ultra fine Sharpie marker. We might not get to these yet this week. We'll kind of see how much time it takes for us to start off with our designs. So we'll see. You also could use a regular Crayola black marker if you don't have a fine point Sharpie. The ultra fine, this wouldn't work for, but this would work to replace this marker. And the other thing is you probably want to have a ruler. I sent home for you a sheet of paper, and you're going to want that out as well. Before we start talking about this absolutely fantastic book that really is about the pictures more than any of the words, I want to show you what our project that will be inspired by this book might look like. I did a series of drawings based on the style of this book. This book is filled with pictures of animals and landscapes and plants inspired by different countries from around the world. What we are going to be doing is creating that same kind of pattern and stylized lined plants like we see in this book, but instead of doing it from around different places in the world, we're going to use our own space in our backyards or somewhere in your yard. You're going to be thinking about the types of things that you have around the place where you live, and you will use that for the idea for your drawing. So the drawings that I have here, you can see that I have a tree that is dividing up this space, and I added light with some paper lanterns. We don't have this exact kind of light in our backyard, but we do have it lit up with stringed lights. And I added a little table and a teacup and food. But you can see I've done the patterned butterflies, which we'll see in our book, and all different kinds of leaves and flowers that were inspired by this book as well. Another version of that I did down here, and I want to take that glare off. You can see again, it's very similar, but instead of having lanterns, I have a candle that provides light, and I don't have a tree, and I don't have a chair. And here's another one. So I have one with the tree off to the side, and I have one with the tree again down the center. I really kind of like how that looks with a big birthday cake. This design I used for a birthday invitation that we used for my daughter's birthday. And again, here's another example. But it's all about the lines and the patterns in the plants and the different kinds of lines, the way we show the different types of leaves. And you can see, for example, here, so we've got more rounded, thicker leaves, but here we've got lines that go across it diagonally to make them look different than these taller leaves that would be from the irises. Before we start our drawings that will be inspired by our own backyards, the style of them I want to be inspired by this book, A Foldout Book, Panorama. This book is filled with the first pages. It's actually one really super long page, so you can see it all together. It is all black and white, and on one side it has a lot of white, so it's daytime, and on the other side it's dark. This image that we have here is inspired by Bangladesh, India, And I'm not going to read all of the words to you. They're just pointing out the mangrove swamps, and that's how we get all these roots for the trees. And we have all of these beautiful, huge, uh, like palm leaves. You can see the birds that are up in the trees. But we use all sorts of kinds of lines that differentiate between the different shapes, from the tiger to the roots of the mangrove, to the lizard, to the flowers, and of course to these beautiful palmy leaves. And we've got an adorable little cat here. That might be something that you want to include if you have a pet. We can do one of your pets in the picture, and you can see how different these leaves look compared to all of these. And it's just black and white. Um, Really, I mean, and that's what's going to be so fun, and why we only have our pencils and our black markers, because we are going to spend a lot of time getting those lines in right. Later on, we'll have fun and add color. This is again inspired by India, so we have the city in the background. On the next page, so it's always this interesting mix. This one is inspired by Alaska, where we have the bears waiting for the salmon to spawn and to come up river, and we have all sorts, always so many different creatures, frogs, beaver, beautiful little ferns here, and again, different kinds of leaves in each one of the pictures, and then our bushes. And on the other side, we have a picture from the Sahara Desert in Africa. And so we've got this beautiful lines that we have for the dunes and different creatures and marks in the sand. The next one is from the Andes Mountains in Ecuador, where we have a volcano that's erupting. And you can see again how they used the lines. These are all soft and billowing and curvy to look like the smoke. We have these wheat-like grasses down here. And then we have just some other grasses around the stones and the wall, and we've got llamas. And then over on the other side of this wall that's dividing this image, which is just, again, it's like all this textural difference created by the lines. We have all this grass with these sheep. This is this side was inspired by Scotland. Loch Ness, Glenmore Highlands in Scotland. And we've got one inspired by Iceland on our left here with the huge whale and the ship, and penguins, and all these like really cool sea creatures and crabs and little tiny minnow fish. And then that contrasts with this sea village in Turkey on the coast. And again, like the one from India, we can see the houses. And they're really simple. You can just see rectangles with rectangles on the two different levels to make the windows and the boats. This one is inspired by Hong Kong in China. And I especially noticed that because of the sails on this boat. That really does make it stand out. And the buildings themselves have some of the pagoda tops, and the architecture says China. And all the contrasting plants. And on this side we have Romania as the inspiration. And if you remember, in the drawings that I did a bunch of different butterflies, and I was very much inspired by the butterflies that they did here in the picture with Romania. We have a bumblebee and some, so these are all things that you might include, a bunch of different kinds of flowers, rabbits. I actually have a lot of rabbit and deer that I see in my yard. I actually also have a mule or donkey, my neighbor does, out in his field. On this side, we have the national park in Senegal, Nicolo Koba. I'm probably saying that wrong, but you can see we've got our elephant and this unbelievably full tree, African tree. We've got our giraffes in the background and our smaller elephant back here. They're using perspective. Our elephant up front is big, so it looks closer to us. And the animals, as they get farther away, are smaller. There's actually a little rhino there. On this side, we have another one of China with the rice paddies. And I love the way they use the lines to make the layered terraces where they farm. And of course, the traditional hats that they use, and the water buffalo. I don't have any water buffalo in my backyard, so I guess that won't be in my drawing. On this side, we have Italy in the winter. And again, we see some rabbits, snowmen, a cute little chalet in the back, and we see pine trees. And on this page on the right, we have Antarctica. And again, you can see how different. They just use all sorts of lines and shapes to create a different landscape with animals. Those emperor penguins. The last page that we have for the daytime is this fishing-inspired one from Colombia. You can see all the fish in the net of the fisherman's boat and the water, and they show you all of these things through line. And then we have feathers, scales, furs, spines, or skins. Everything can be found in this natural paradise, and this is the Galapagos Islands, where you can see all the different kinds of creatures with the different kinds of skin and feathers and shells. So we're going to use this book to inspire our drawing. I would like you to take your paper and grab your ruler and put your ruler up against the edge of your paper and just draw a line. And I want you to do that on all four sides. You just keep turning it around, lining up your ruler. This is going to be the border for our image. So we're going to draw inside this rectangle that we just made so that it's framed. I want you to think about your backyard, and I want you to think about, do you have any trees? Any unique ones? Are they pine trees, or are they a deciduous tree? A tree with leaves that might be an oak or a maple or an ash, a black walnut maybe. These are all trees that are common here in Michigan. Then I want you to think about what kinds of plants. We looked at so many cool pictures. I don't mind if you add some plants that are different, just so we can make it our drawings interesting. But I want you to first think of a tree. Do you want to include a tree? And if you want to, you can decide whether you want it on the side or in the center to kind of divide up your picture. And you can see from here what that looks like. Here I have one where the tree comes along just the edge, and then your branches can come over and you can put birds and things in there. Or the tree can come down the center, like in this one, where it's going to divide your picture so you have two different sides to fill in. You don't have to do your picture horizontally. You could do your picture vertically. If you know that you want to, you have a tall tree and maybe you want to show a tree house in it, or maybe you want to show off some other things that are taller. You could do part of your garage in the building, because we saw some really cool buildings. That is up to you. But I think I'm going to stick with mine horizontally. And if you are uncertain, you can do it just kind of the way I'm doing it, and then you can tweak it and do adjustments in a way that you like best. So we have a really, really big, huge pine tree in between our house. And I'm going to divide my drawing up by the trunk of this pine tree. Now this pine tree is so big that when you walk past it, you don't even come close unless you look up to seeing the top. So I'm going to have branches that come down into um, this part of my drawing. I'll decide how I'm going to do the pine needles on it later on, but I'm just doing some branches. So I've got lines that come down, and those are going to be the branches, and I will be putting in lots of pine needles that would hang from here. So this will have all different kinds. We'll put on different lines on here for bark. So I'll probably do something kind of wavy like that, and we'll do part of it dark, and we'll do part of it with like a lighter brown when we color it in. So we get the impression of bark on our tree. When I look at this drawing, or the patterns that we can see here, I really love these leaves here. And the closest thing I have are these big palms. So underneath my tree in my garden, we do have a lot of greens that grow in, so I think I'm going to do something like this. And just to remind you what that looks like, I'm going to draw kind of near here. There's going to be a central line that you would put in. So I'm going to do that on this side. And I'm going to bring that central line all the way across. I'm going to make it a really big. And then I'm just going to keep bringing lines down. Like that. So that's one side. That's kind of, it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of like that. So I will do that on the other side as well. So you can see what one big branch looks like. I think I'll do probably two more, so I'll do one on here, and maybe one down there. So that's going to kind of fill up that space pretty full. So I'm going to, you can go ahead and put some of these palm-like leaves in if you want. I'll come back to that. I think first I'll show you down here how we could do a couple other kinds of leaves that will look a little bit more like this, where we have, they're squatty and more bush-like. So I'm going to put some of those in here. And that's just making a bunch of ovals that I repeat, and it is a little bush. So you can do some different kinds of leaves in a couple spots. So go ahead, turn on some nice music, and put your lines in. I will meet you back once I have my lines for this plant in as well, and I will probably put in a couple more branches from my pine tree on this side. You can see that I have filled in my whole drawing by putting in different kinds of lines and using those lines and shapes to create different types of plants. Now, these plants are inspired by the book, and I have sent with you several copies of the pages of the book so you could get ideas for how they did plants and animals. In my drawing, I have, for the rest of the plants, I have my ferns here, which I did a swirly line and then put those half circles all the way around it. And I did those in a couple different spots. I also included some irises. If you have irises in your yard, you know they have really long leaves and then little flowers that bloom usually at the beginning of June. So that was inspired. You might not have these in your yard, and obviously these plants aren't growing right now, so you just have to you're kind of using your memory to think of that. I included a table and the back of one chair and then the back of another chair, which I put a blanket hanging over. I put some more flowers. These are going to be my tiger lilies with their leaves, and some other really big palms, which are like my canna lilies. But you don't have to know what every plant is. You can use the pictures I gave you from the book to be inspired and just take ideas from that. I also put a cat on our table, and I included a deer head and a cardinal bird. So what I want to do with the rest of our time, because I think you're going to be very good at coming up with your own plants, you should make some that are low, some that are higher. If you have furniture anywhere in your backyard, you could use that for your ideas. Otherwise, you can make up a chair. You could look at your kitchen chair and use that, put that in your picture if you want. I put strung lights, like Christmas lights. Ours are a little bit bigger. They have little bulbs. And then the big circle I have around it is going to be the light shining from it. So that part is very imaginative. You can do your own. If you want to do some cool lanterns, or you could even do a little lamp on the table, whatever you want. I want those to be fun, and I want each of you to kind of come up with your own ideas. But I do want to show you how to draw a basic bird. Now, I know we already did our cardinals, but we cut them out. You could draw your own, but I'll quick show you kind of how to do that. And then I want to include for you the basics of how to draw the face of a deer, because a lot of us have deer that we see in our yards. We have deer, we have woods in the back of our yard, and so that's usually where I see the deer. And we have a cat, an outdoor cat, so I included a cat, and then obviously some birds. But I will show you how to kind of do the basic shape of a dog and a cat and a chicken, a couple different animals that you might possibly see on your block. Or I guess what I would say too is if you are uncertain about your backyard, you can remember what it looks like at school, and you could include things that maybe kind of like the backyard of school has. So there's lots of opportunity to be imaginative. I want you guys to have fun. So I'm going to take the rest of the time for this video to show you how to do the basics for a couple of animals. All we're going to do this week is do the pencil part. Next week, it's going to get too long. So next week, we will be using the markers. And these are some basic drawings that I'm going to kind of use to help you, just to show you how to draw the basic shape of a deer, and then the basic shape of a dog. So this is a border collie. It's really hard with the dogs because who knows what kind of dog you might have. So I have also included in your Seesaw link, you can ask your mom or your dad for help, a link to a Japanese illustrator on Etsy who has all sorts of animals, all different kinds of dogs and cats and farm animals that you could use to look at to draw an animal that you might like. So I did a border collie, a terrier. I'll show you the basics and you can choose to put animals in yours if you want. So I'm going to take a scrap sheet of paper. You can take a scrap sheet as well, or you can draw directly on your drawing. And we'll go ahead and we'll start by drawing just a very, very basic cat. I'm going to start with a circle, and you'll maybe want your eraser so we can erase some of the lines. Then I'm going to put an oval in. Now my oval, I'm just going to make a little bit flat at the bottom. We're going to put triangles in. And I'm going to do another triangle on the inside and the outside. So we have, you can see, there are two triangles. I'm going to do a little triangle nose. Then I will do a line that comes down and across, two dots, and lots of whiskers. Now if you have a cat, your cat might be all one color or it might have markings. You can put marks on it. Sometimes I like to put a little line. We have a calico, so it's kind of patchy. So I can put some little spots on it, mostly a white belly though. You're going to put a rectangle for your legs. Do some little feet. And then a curvy little line for a tail that's in the back. And then you, like I said, you can put spots on it, or if it has different spots on its legs. So just real basic. There's a basic little cat. Depending on the kind of cat you have, you can, if it's really fat or skinny or different colors, all of those things you can personalize for your drawing. Next, we'll do a dog. And again, depending on the kind of dog you have, will depend on how you draw this. But we'll start again kind of with a circle, and then an oval. And then I'm working on this border collie, so I'm just going to do another kind of circle there. I'm going to add some floppy fur. Around the edge. I'm going to put two lines coming down the center, and I will do another oval, and about a little bit lower than half, I'm going to do a little rectangle, which will be a nose, and I'll color that in dark. And I will bring two lines coming down. I will include some ears, which are not quite triangles. You can kind of make them however you like. And again, you can go look these up on that link I gave you for that Japanese illustrator. Shows you some cute ways of drawing a dog. We're going to draw a little bit of a line underneath. We'll include the front legs, which are again rectangles. And you could include the fluffy tail in the background if you wanted. And then you can mess around with it to get it more the way you want, but that's the basics. I'll do the terrier face. It's a little bit different. You know, you start with a kind of a soft triangle, and then you would do little triangle ears because they're kind of flopped over. Again, we would do that line down the center and have an oval. We put a dark little, this one we're going to do a little more oval square for the nose. And we would do two lines that come down from the nose. Do our circles with dots. And then we're going to kind of do that oval shape for the body. We'll put some lines in to mark some of the skin. And we'd go ahead and put our rectangle legs in. You could kind of show some of the ones in the background if you wanted. You could do that on all of them. And you could do a tail. Real basic, put a little dog in or a cat if you like. You might have some goats or sheep. I actually have some down the street where I live. So I'll just quick show you how to do that. We've got a nice little oval shape. And so not instead of at the top like the dogs and the cats, we do kind of our little triangles out the side. And we do one on the inside of it. Put a little line across the forehead. And then we have our oval at the bottom. And we color in part of that for the nose. And then we put a line from there. It's going to be its mouth. We fit our little eyes in up on top. And then we would put an oval and another oval and our legs, just like we did for our dogs. And maybe you'll show a little tail in the back. Just very, very basic. The last one I'll show you is a deer face. You can see I have a chicken here and a pig. You can see there's just a bunch of circles. If you want me to help you draw these as well, send me a message on Seesaw and I can make a little video of these as well. I was just drawing these because they were so cute. I don't imagine you probably have a pig in your yard. You might have chickens, so I guess maybe I'll just quick draw the chicken. We have a circle, kind of comes down a rectangle, then we would have our oval again. We do little tail feathers, a triangle with legs. We have one back here, legs, little dot. We would do two triangles like that, and a little rooster head, a little gobble we'll do here. So you can see, and then you would erase some of this, right? So we've got our little chicken. So just some basics. The deer is a little bit harder. It's but I suspect you might have deer, so it's probably good for me to just show you the basics of it. You would do a nice, oopsies. For the deer, again, you're going to do kind of an oval face. Actually, maybe it's more of a soft triangle would be a better way to start. The ears are going to kind of come out to the side, so they're not quite like the sheep because they're on top, but they kind of stick out to the side like the sheep do, but they're higher up. You're going to do that same kind of line to help divide up the face with one that comes down. And then you're going to do, I do kind of a square rectangle shape. Then I do another one, two underneath. This gets filled in for the nose. My pencil really needs to be sharpened. Then we would do two circles kind of to the side, or ovals. And inside, that's where our eyes, we would do circles for eyes. And I might thin that out a little bit. I would put the neck in, which is basically 2 lines, and then we would bring out our body. And we want it to kind of be like that. So we're going to have our legs. And as you can see, I'm looking at what I've already drawn to help me remember, how I could do this. Because I don't draw animals all the time. So we'd have that second leg. So we don't want them overly detailed, because if they are, they'll be hard to color in. So we just want to keep them pretty simple. But that's how you get started putting in some animals. I would suggest that you include, if you have a pet, you include one. And like I said, I've got my cat, I've got my deer, which I always see in the backyard, and I have a bird. That's the one last thing I'll show you. If you were going to do a cardinal or a blue jay, we're going to do that the same way that we would, we cut them out, where we have basically, it's kind of a triangle shape that's rounded on the bottom. And then we put on a triangle for the beak. We do line for the wings and some little stick legs. You could put a nice little cardinal or robin or blue jay in your drawing as well. Take your time this week and fill it with all sorts of detail. If you're working on it and you don't like how it's coming out, then flip it over and start over again. It is not a big deal. But don't do anything else. Just use your pencils this week. So have lots of fun. Contact me on Seesaw if you're having a hard time, and I would be glad to show you how to draw another kind of animal. Have a great week, and we will see you soon.